what we're all about and what we do, and then very quick intro into myself as well. But if you wouldn't mind keeping the mics off for now, that'd be great, just so everyone can hear. There's no background noise and things, but obviously the chat pane's there for you to ask any questions, and there'll be some resources and things dropped in there from some of my Prodo colleagues in the call as well today, Hugh and Meg. So yeah, have a little look out for those. And then, yeah, of course, we'll go through the topic today, which is all around chatbots, what they are, how you can use them to automate customer interaction and engagement. Ultimately, the aim of helping to reduce those call volumes, which obviously is a topic which I suppose historically has been quite important for the housing space, but certainly over the past sort of 12 months or so, having that digital option is really important, carrying more importance than usual. So we'll go through what you need to think about when you're considering chatbots, if you are. And then I've also got some great stats as well to share in terms of real world examples from the housing space and some from outside as well. And yeah, as I say, there'll be a little bit of time for Q&A at the end as well. So if anyone does have any questions on what we're talking about today, yeah, do my best to answer those. And of course, we'll send the follow-ups after this as well with information on the slides today and what we talked about. So I will get cracking right into the intro and then get started. So yeah, hi everyone, my name's Jacob. I'm a digital strategist at Prodo, working really closely with Hugh and Meg on the call today. So yeah, it's basically my job to explore digital transformation opportunities with organizations looking to grow digital, and from my perspective, quite often specializing in and focusing on web development and website projects, chatbot projects for the housing space. So yeah, there's a few Prodo people on the call as well, so goes a quick wave. Of course, we are the hosts of the Housing Hive, which is a session, sort of a regular webinar we set up coming up to a year ago, which seems like it's actually flown by. We set this up just after lockdown 1, initially just in place to sort of connect like-minded housing professionals interested in digital, looking to sort of share ideas, collaborate on ways to use digital solutions to help sort of aid during sort of the pandemic and sort of help keep that operation going and interact with your customers. But yeah, since then it's kind of grown into what it is today, which is a regular 2-weekly webinar of almost like a bit of a mini community, which has been great so far. It kind of varies the topics that we cover on here. Sometimes we have guest speakers from housing associations we're working with, sometimes who we're not, sometimes from people outside of the sector. So and some topics that we run like we're running today from ourselves. But yeah, from our perspective at Prodo, we're a digital transformation partnership agency of around 50 or so people, all based in the UK. All of our work's carried out in-house. Been around since 1998 and specialise specifically in the housing sector and offering digital solutions into the housing space to try and sort of solve problems that you guys all have. Obviously, our offerings sort of changed and adapted as times sort of moved on from quite small scale website projects to bespoke customer portals. We've got our own sort of SaaS-based portal called Franklin, which is the guy waving at the bottom there. And also we actually published a book as well called Shift, How to Make Channel Shift Happen in Housing, which is a book we published in 2019. And that is essentially survey results from over 250 associations, key contributors, as well as a bit of a guide from ourselves as well of running these sorts of projects in this sector. So yeah, if you're interested in having a read of that book, feel free to go to, we should have a link in the chat, I think, but it'll be, I think it's prodo.com/shift, nice and easy to remember. And you can just fill in a quick form there and we'll get a free copy posted out to you if you're interested in having a read of that one, if you don't have one already. And yeah, as I mentioned, with a Minds Behind Franklin, which is our SaaS-based portal, subscription-based, and also we can build custom versions of that as well. So it essentially suits housing associations from very small to up to very large, and everything sort of in between. So that's enough on the intro, and enough on myself and Prodo, I think. So I guess onto what we're here to talk about today, which is chatbots specifically. And it's always a really interesting topic because we do tend to still hear about some reluctance around chatbots generally. So I'll talk you through a little bit about that later on. And yeah, as I said at the start, I'm sure you'll have some questions at the end, so I'll do my best to answer those. But on these webinars, and we're running quite a few of these at the moment, we kind of always like to start with something like this just to help us sort of set the tone and sort of kick off from there. So I'm sure all of you are aware of what a chatbot is, and that's kind of why you're here today. But at the most basic level, a chatbot is essentially a piece of software that kind of simulates and processes human conversation, allowing users to interact with digital services as if they were communicating with a real person. They're absolutely everywhere these days and are being adopted in all different ways. I had a really successful experience with a chatbot recently with BVLA, for example. I used one the other day from JD Sports when I was querying a return on some trainers I'd bought and sent them back. I know IKEA use one, so yeah, they're popping up everywhere. And I think from our perspective at Prodo, we've used chatbots for Ariga, one of our partners who offer service offices nationally, to help users make bookings there. We built and launched one, a Facebook Messenger bot actually for the Aspinall Foundation to enhance the customer experience before and during the visit to the park. And then, of course, sort of what we're here to talk about today in the housing sector as well, which I'll go into a bit more detail later on in terms of a couple of case studies and some stats and sort of facts around those later on. But I think over the years, just to get started on this, conversations and the way we communicate has changed, massively. So if we look back sort of 30 years or so ago, nobody could purchase over the internet, for instance. It'd be all done face-to-face or over the phone. Conversations between customer and organisations have sort of transitioned from, ravens to pigeons, telegrams to emails, face-to-face to phone, and now it's video chat, it's chatbots, it's live chat. I think because of that ever-changing technology, it's really changed the way customers behave, and certainly your customers in the housing space as well. So, and I guess the only consistent being that customers are looking for an authentic and personalised experience, and I guess it's the channels that they're sort of interacting with that's changing really. So some stats on that: 90% of people now prefer to communicate using a messaging service such as live chat or a chatbot rather than actually picking up the phone. But as we know in the housing space, a lot of people still like to call up, and when there isn't that digital option there, they will sort of call you either way. Email rate and landing page conversions have dropped, and customers are sort of generally these days, when they go online, they're looking to find answers that they want kind of straight away. And that's why solutions such as live chat, such as chatbots, are so effective for the consumers or customers, if you like, of today. So as I mentioned on the previous one, we've been using chatbots at Prodo for a number of years now, sort of more in a commercial space. And a great case study of that Ariga bot I mentioned a little bit earlier on from a commercial sort of perspective is we launched a chatbot for them with sort of lead generation in mind, and the bot qualified more qualified leads for their sales team to work in the first week of its sort of existence compared with the previous 12 months of just live chat alone, which was amazing. Now, of course, we've been working in the housing space, digital transformation for a number of years as well. And with the ever sort of evolving demands of digital channel shift, it almost became a bit of a perfect storm, really. So we kind of know that customers expect immediate answers and like to interact digitally, and sort of expect that these days. We knew that chatbots kind of work in a commercial setting, and we know that housing associations are kind of snowed under really when it comes to call volumes, which obviously puts strain on the organisation. It can frustrate customers. So that's why we're sort of talking about the relevancy of chatbots in the housing space specifically, really. So what's the solution to that particular problem then? We see, one of the solutions certainly being chatbots. It's a great way of acting as a very efficient and effective 24/7, 365 days a year customer service channel in essence. So with that 90% of customers preferring to be sort of interacting via messaging, it's important that conversations happen with those customers from yourselves whenever that customer prefers it to happen, whether that's before they start work or in the middle of the night, on the weekend. And that's one of the reasons why a chatbot solution can be a little bit more sought after, if you like, than just simply live chat alone. It's always on, can support your visitors at all times rather than just office hours when someone's available. And then I suppose from a tenant perspective, it's the likelihood of someone having a query for you outside of office hours is very, very likely. I think in terms of scalability, conversations scalable digitally. Your customer isn't really interested in how many other people you have to speak to or how many people are in the queue, whether that's 10 or hundreds. All they really care about is their actual issue personally. So if that chatbot or sort of conversation panel is built with existing data in mind, you have the most common questions you're going to be asked, and you can just put that into a chatbot and have those answers sort of serviced to them 24/7. Obviously freeing up resources elsewhere in the business to make that sort of customer experience and customer servicing aspect a little bit more efficient. And obviously, as we like to say, when we're talking about digital channel shift and housing, rather than sort of trying to replace people here, we're trying to free people up to spend time with people who actually need support most. I think conversations have context as well. So if you were to have a contact with a customer, there should always be a sort of a timeline of conversations that you've had with them. CRM data obviously is a great example of that. It gives you the sort of the whole picture of the calls you've had, the conversations you've had with them. And then with chatbots, it's the same. So you want to make sure that you get to the root of the problem straight away, rather than making the customer jump through many hoops over and over again, answering the same questions, giving you their name and email address over and over again. So the more information you hold about that particular person, the more helpful and sort of useful that conversation can be. And then I suppose finally on this one, it's, digital conversations need to happen where the customers are. So think about adding value to your customers and meeting them when they actually are. Think about the channels to establish where those customers want to have those conversations, whether it being over the phone, whether it be social media, email, via your live chat or via a chatbot. So kind of set the tone quite quickly there, and I'm running through this quite quickly. But yeah, we set the tone of what chatbots are and almost kind of the high level use case, and we're really aware that they're really, really widely used, and the kind of the use case for them is at a really high level. But what can they actually do for you in terms of the main benefits of putting together a chatbot and enabling your customers to interact with you that way? It's almost that art of the hello to begin with, really. Your visitors are not just greeted by a menu navigation and having to go through and find things themselves. It's almost a quicker way for them to get the answer that they need quickly. This is sort of enables you to start conversations with them as a sort of a time that's convenient for them as well. And when you talk about sort of conversations digitally, it allows you to learn a little bit more about the visitors and your customers as well. So obviously having forms are great, and they certainly serve a purpose, but they're not always as good at sort of providing that particular context depending on the sort of fields that they have. So with having conversations specifically, you can ultimately understand what the customer is there to do. You can explore potentially other issues that they might have. You can understand their challenges in a bit more detail, and ultimately how you can help them and sort of prioritize that way. And then the great way about this being sort of digital and sort of online is the way that you can analyze interactions and sort of make calls on, if there's particularly sort of high traffic questions potentially, or maybe gaps in your sort of current self-service offering. You can see that someone's always asking about a particular topic, or there's high percentages there, and that's a particular gap that can sort of force you into, or sort of inform you into making that change and sort of enabling that particular outcome. It's, as I mentioned at the start, it can be an always on solution. So with a chatbot in place, you can support your customers all day, every day. It serves as an easy way for your customers to find where they need to go and find the answer to their query whenever they might have a question, whether that be a query that results in potentially guiding them off to a piece of helpful content in your website or elsewhere, even another website potentially, if it's a council query, possibly around bin collection days, something like that. It could be that sort of outcome. Or where we've seen this be quite successful as well is, rather than just directing people to pieces of content, it actually serves as another sort of route into enabling people to register your customer portal and sort of enable that channel shift in another way. And the last one I think would be, just generally speed, really. So as well as being always on, you're able to analyze this. It's really, really quickly for someone just to quickly interact with that chatbot, move through the sort of the querying process and sort of find the answer that they're looking for really quickly, without having to either, wait for a response on some sort of support desk email chain, or, obviously waiting in a call queue, or having to schedule anything in that way. So, okay, they're the sort of main benefits, and we're kind of clear on what the on the sort of the use cases and what chatbots are. So everything sounds great so far. Everything sounds good. But how do you get started? What do you actually need? And I think obviously first of all is you need the actual piece of software which enables you to build that chatbot for your customers to interact with. And there's many out there, and they come in all shapes and sizes, some carrying different sort of costs to others. We sometimes see that people are looking for this particular piece of software to be connected with a telephony system potentially. Yeah, there's some really popular ones out there. So Drift's a really popular one that we've used in the past, as is Zendex and HubSpot, and a few others on the screen there, together with having something custom made, which is obviously an option, but comes with its own sort of challenges. Yeah, in this scenario, we'd always sort of suggest and recommend having something which comes built in with as part of almost like a CRM system, really, such as HubSpot, and that's what we've used for the bots that we've built in the past, and certainly in the housing space as well. Now, usually when we talk about a piece of software, for which is, is suits the housing space. And you mentioned a separate CRM. There's often a bit of a worry, from the get-go there right away, because there's always systems already very, very embedded into the organization, and almost getting buy-in from budget holders or the teams who are going to be managing that software and sort of looking after those inquiries can be potentially quite difficult. And what I would say there is that what we can do is actually create integration between something like HubSpot, which has Chatbot Builder sat on top of that CRM, and a whole host of other tools. We can integrate that with your existing CRM. We can integrate that with your housing management system, or wherever your customer data is currently held, basically. And what that does is it enables you to benefit from the functionality that you gain from having that Chatbot Builder and all the benefits that I've just talked through. But it lets you keep the and the insights of having that in place as well. But it lets you keep the customer data held centrally, with that single source of truth, which we know is really, really important, rather than having multiple systems out there with different sets of customer data. It can become quite confusing. So we'd always suggest having something which is built upon a CRM, so you can gain those insights into sort of past interactions. You can make decisions on if you need to sort of maybe contact these people again, or feedback generally. So having that CRM built with that is key. But having that integrated with your current systems, which is certainly possible, is obviously super important as well, rather than keeping those things sort of separately. So that'd be the first step. It'd be looking into the software that you need. And from our perspective, we certainly recommend HubSpot. And then almost sort of a 5-stage framework, which we use for not only implementing chatbots, but when we're looking in the sort of the more commercial sector, and this sort of ties into sort of generating leads for home buyers as well. If you work on both sides of the organization, then it's this sort of 5-stage framework. It's conversational marketing framework, which we use sort of outside of the sector as well. And the first step to that, sort of post having the chatbot software put in place, I think, is personalization. So shared knowledge is the foundation of having good conversations. And as I said before, if you already hold information on these people and your customers, why waste time in gathering the information you already have again? Make the conversations more personal. It helps the conversation flow. It helps encourage those people to return again, rather than asking these users for their name, like I said before, name and email address and phone number and over again. If you already have that and you can see that person navigating back, then we can almost skip that step and create a more personalized experience, which is great for generally conversion rates, so people will engage that way. And then second on this list would be contextualization. So as we've said, the 21st century customer is looking for answers and looking for them as quickly as they can get hold of them, which is why chatbots and live chat are being used more and more. But you need to be able to help these individuals immediately. If your conversations are able to answer the question straight away, without jumping through those hoops again, you're providing that immediate value, giving the visitor or your customer online the best user experience possible, really. So I think part of this step is certainly spending time analysing interactions, and then determining what data will help improve those customer relationships. Following on from that would be standardization. So whilst the first two, personalize and contextualize, are certainly extremely important, they're almost they're quite time-consuming steps which you need in terms of getting set up and sort of creating that strategy and making that work from the get-go. But standardization is something you need to think about as well, in terms of making use of potentially some FAQs that you have. And there's a piece of research which we were a part of a while ago, which we sort of used to help build some of the chatbots we've done in the housing space around most common questions asked from tenants or residents asking their housing association or housing provider. And then that can help you automate and sort of optimize for and improve for those future interactions. And then I think the last point before moving on to the fifth step would be empathy. So similar to a little bit earlier on, customer doesn't really care about how many other people you have to talk to, how many other people you have to service. They want a solution to their problem and quickly, and obviously you want to solve their problem, you want to solve their issue to sort of satisfy them and move on to the next. So providing empathy to a particular issue before moving on to a solution helps the customers feel valued, helps them feel heard, and sort of ties them nicely to that sort of empathy aspect of it. And then the final sort of step to this almost framework would be optimization. So with all those other 4 aspects of the framework in place, this would be the final step. So it's certainly about learning from past conversations to be able to improve them moving forward. You should be analysing interactions and sort of assessing what they should be used for. Look out for gaps, like I said earlier. So analysing those interactions can sometimes reveal that people are potentially asking for questions or asking for answers that you don't necessarily have the answer for in that initial sort of chatbot launch. So that's what I mean by sort of continuous improvement and based on that analysis, based on data, together with asking customers for feedback, asking their advice on how they feel their experience has been. That will help you correct any issues and make sure this sort of chatbot and that strategy behind that is sort of in a good place and it's continually improving and evolving as your customers' needs and what they're asking changes as well. And I think just to sort of close that slide off would be every conversation that your organization has should aim to add value to that particular customer as a standardized and automated optimized chatbot can sort of help you do that. And, again, this all sounds great and talking through the ideas and benefits of it sound really encouraging, but, do they work in the housing space? And I think just to touch on a handful of case studies here, I've picked out 3 for today. These are 3 housing providers we're currently working with at Prodo, Housing Solutions, Orwell and Wolverhampton Homes. Each of these organisations have a concierge chatbot from us built with HubSpot. Those chatbots are in place to triage incoming inquiries automatically. And what that means is they direct users to either a helpful piece of content, which maybe is sat on the website, or, as I said earlier, it's a way of guiding people into either register to your portal if you have one, or log into their existing portal account for those more sort of complex transactions or account-specific actions. Now, each of these chatbots for these 3 organisations have live chat handoff as well. So the chatbot's in place, but there's always that option for the user to speak to a human, and we always like to sort of put that in place because sometimes certain inquiries need that right away. So that option's always there, and each of these are deployed, as I say, on HubSpot, but deployed straight onto these organizations' websites. So someone navigating to the website, if you navigate to these 3 websites right now, you'll see it pop up in the bottom right-hand corner as a live chat window would, but the sort of the live chat is almost to get going into that live chat is sort of almost the sort of the chatbot first, if you like, to sort of triage it to begin with. Now, we launched the Housing Solutions chatbot right at the start of the pandemic, actually, in just after lockdown 1, and what we're now lockdown 50 or something like that. So great timing really to be offering another digital interaction route for customers. And yeah, as you can see on the screen, since then we've found that 90% of conversations which has been started within that chatbot window have actually been closed and handled without that live chat handoff having to happen. We're not just talking about a handful of sort of conversations here, that we're talking thousands of them since the launch. So that means that those customers who are interacting with the bot are essentially self-serving themselves via the chatbot. They're either finding the answer to their question by the bot itself, as I say, being directed to a piece of helpful content, maybe around tenant responsibilities or how to raise a repair or how to pay rent, or by logging into their portal, if you have a portal, and these 3 organisations do. So, of course, these people who are interacting with the bot and serving themselves otherwise would have had to find other ways of finding the answer to their inquiry. And usually, as we all know, that probably would have been a phone call. Orwell's another great one. So Orwell is one's a little bit more recent Housing Solutions, but we're still seeing a steady increase of engagement, as you sort of seeing on screen there. So in essence, people are using these, people are using them successfully. And then, the last one would be Wolverhampton Homes. So again, that's quite a recent launch, but as you can see there, just in 30 days alone, there's been 3,000 chats started in there. And we're looking at, hopefully getting a bit of a fuller sort of picture as to interactions there, but we'll be predicting that it's going to be seeing similar results to Housing Solutions and Orwell in terms of the number of chats that move through it, and how often they're sort of solved without any need of human interaction. So I think the benefit of that particular stat, particular Housing Solutions one right at the top left there, would be that it's not only that those customers are finding what they need nice and quickly, which is great for them. It means that it's had no human interaction. So from an efficiencies perspective, all those calls potentially have been saved, and it means that Housing Solutions staff have been able to spend their time elsewhere, potentially with people who have inquiries which can't be solved in the chatbot and actually need human interaction to sort of discuss and sort of solve, maybe potentially from a more sensitive manner. But it's all around sort of servicing those repeatable and relatively easy and sort of almost avoidable, if you like, pieces of contact automatically and sort of digitally. And then again, once that's in place, it's a case of sort of analysing how that's been and improving it further and further, and sort of trying to capture more of the audience as time goes on. Okay, so usually, as I say at the start, there's many sort of questions that were asked around chatbots, and we had some through on the contact form, on the registration form, and these particular questions are things that we tend to get asked when we're writing proposals for chatbots or having sort of early conversations around the benefits of them. And the first one is usually, this all sounds great, but not everyone likes interacting with chatbots. And whilst that's true, I think the data tells us that a hell of a lot of people don't mind interacting with them as well. And it's all around sort of the premise that we like to talk about in terms of digital channel shift and accelerating that channel shift is around producing digital solutions and services, which is ideal for people who are initially happy to use them. And then it's about sort of shifting those people over who are willing and able to use them. And these sorts of people would actually miss them if they weren't there, and they would obviously find other ways to contact you. Of course, there's going to be people out there who are resistant to change and are resistant to chatbots and digital interactions generally. But I think in terms of servicing, big chunks of audiences like we've seen on those stats there quickly without any need of interaction, I'd say that don't try and let finding the perfect solution to serve 100% of your customers easily and effectively get in the way of using something which is proven really, really effective. And big chunks of people actually do like using them as well. And then another one we tend to hear is, around when you're sort of building the bot and how that interacts and how that works and how it's presented, should you build it to be, fully simulated human and almost hide that it's a chatbot almost, or be outright and be really, really clear that it is a chatbot? And usually it makes the most sense in that scenario to just be upfront and be very clear that it is a chatbot, because people will work that out quite quickly anyway, based on the sort of the nature of how that's put together and the types of responses and the way that the chatbot responds. So we sort of suggest make it clear that it's a chatbot, but still ensure that it's sort of positioned in that nice, friendly and helpful way, rather than being very, very cold and I suppose less encouraging to use really. So make it clear it's a chatbot, but keep the sort of the friendliness behind there, and you'll see if you do have a sort of a quick look on those Orwell Housing Solutions and Wolverhampton Homes, and there's another one with RBH as well. That's how we sort of position those ones. So it's very, very obvious that it is a chatbot you're interacting with, but they're positioned in quite a friendly and sort of helpful manner. So they're two of the sort of very, very frequent questions that we tend to hear as part of conversations around chatbots. But obviously we had 45 minutes in the diary today, and we've just gone past 1:30. So at this stage, has anyone got any questions, or we had any questions through the chat, guys, that anyone sort of popped in there at all that we could sort of explore at this point? I can't see the chat pane at the moment. We got any there?
Not through the chat yet.
Okay.
Nothing that's come through so far, Jake, but I think a good point that I always like to make when we talk about chatbots is you can have different chatbots that go up on different pages of your site that could be used for different purposes. So it's not like you have one chatbot and that sits on your homepage and sits on every page and it does exactly the same thing. I actually think the beauty of having like a chatbot software like HubSpot is that you can deploy different chatbots for different pages of your site. So if, for example, you have a page on your site in the housing industry which says report a repair, you could actually build that chatbot to basically be able to serve that customer directly relating to a repair. Which is really useful. And I think that's where a lot of businesses, when they perhaps are thinking about a chatbot or even looking into a chatbot, these are things that they don't normally see or don't normally think that is actually possible. So there's so many different possibilities to deploy different purposes for chatbots across different pages of your site.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. It's probably worth mentioning actually that those three case studies almost that I mentioned earlier on are almost like your sort of MVP launch products, if you like. So they're the initial concierge chatbots of, you know, being on the homepage, being on several pages on the website from a high level, sort of triaging different categories of inquiries. But it was always the sort of the case where after they've been live for a while and we can analyze that data, you know, building those out in a bit more detail in other areas, like you said, for repairs, for other sort of high traffic queries like ASB reporting or rent queries, those sorts of things. So yeah, you can tailor these to specific needs as well, as Hugh says, really. Yeah.
Yeah, we just had a question come through as well from Eve Smith. And she's asked, can chatbots be configured to show a different welcome message based on the site visitor's route to the page, e.g. based on their browser search term?
That's an interesting one. It's probably one we'd take away and sort of investigate further. But certainly with the HubSpot implementation that we use, that's that can, as I said earlier on, using a bot which is attached to a CRM, you can sort of contextualize the responses that has based on the data that you're holding in the CRM. So you can, you know, use specific pieces of criteria to tailor the sort of messaging and language there. But yeah, we'll investigate that actually and have a little look into if that could be personalized from the get-go based on the initial terms.
There's nothing else that's coming through. Has anybody got any more questions? Feel free to unmute yourselves at this point as well.
Yeah.
The presentation's come off, so it'd be great to hear some questions.
Hi, yeah. I was just wondering if you've got. We're starting with our chatbot, and it's the first time we've used it. And I was just wondering, do you have any experience of? You've mentioned Wolverhampton Homes Orwell, of strategies they've used to sort of promote and reassure people that the chatbot will work and that it's worth getting in touch through that. Because obviously we're trying to encourage people to use it, but new things are sometimes something that people struggle with. Is there a way of just to encourage them, or any good examples of it, I suppose?
I think the sort of common strategy behind it comes down to almost like a case-by-case basis with those in essence, really. But I know Housing Solutions in particular were running communications campaigns around the sort of the launch of this, and you know, they've kind of widely documented how useful their customer portal is, and almost, you know, giving that as another digital option for their tenants to interact with them with, basically. So, you know, here's another option for you to get in touch, or here's another option for you to solve your query. But yeah, I think generally they've kind of just been deployed and started to work and see results quite quickly, really. Where are you up to with that? Have you launched it live at the moment and you're looking to sort of encourage more usage on there, or where have you got to with that one?
We're at the stage where we've got engagement focus groups, so they're kind of testing it at the moment. Because we wanted we're reassured that it's going to work, but we wanted to make sure that it definitely does before we do a mass use. But we're not that far off, I think, and we just wanted to. We get a lot of social media. I'm sure everybody does a lot of social media interactions. So we just wanted to try and highlight it as a better way, I suppose, of talking to someone rather than calling and messaging where you can get an easy answer, I suppose.
Yeah, I think what probably the route you're taking is probably the right one, really, going through those focus groups and ensuring that it's set up in the way that serves your customers, because I think comms and sort of marketing strategy around the chatbot itself would need to be specific to your type of audiences, really, and how they historically have liked to interact with you, and I suppose if they interact with you a hell of a lot on social, and you know, promote it on social as much as you can, I guess. But yeah.
That's that.
Great.
Thank you.
No problem at all. Any other questions anyone wants to pop in there at this point? Okay. There is another slide I just wanted to quickly touch on, which is just a survey which we put together, and it's all around sort of current challenges and goals right now. So we will include this in the follow-up, I believe, Meg, and maybe pop it in the chat right now. But yeah, there'll be a prize draw for that one for everyone who completes it. Often we do sort of prize draws for the housing space, and then someone wins something and says, you know, we actually can't accept prizes where we work. So we've changed it for this one and said that if you are the winner, then we'll donate to a charity of your choice. But no, we'd really appreciate sort of some interaction on that one as well. It helps us sort of inform a load of different things here. So that'd be interesting to see. Okay, good stuff. If there's no questions, I know we're sort of approaching the end time. Anyway, felt like that went really fast, and I was talking quite fast for that one. Yeah, for the next one, we're focusing on video specifically. We work with a company called Vidyard. It's a tool we use internally, and we're looking to partner with them as well. So we'll be joined by Yaniv from Vidyard, and he's going to be talking to us around multiple use cases for video content, basically, and how that can work for not only sort of sales and marketing if you're focused on the sort of the commercial side of housing and looking to sell homes and shared ownership, but also from a service perspective and sort of customer service side of things as well. So we'll be releasing the topic of that one and a bit more detail on that one in the coming days. But yeah, Thursday 11th of March will be focused on using video. So more than happy to register and hopefully see you guys on that one as well. But no, if there's no more questions, we'll probably call it a close there, and appreciate everyone's time joining us today, and hopefully that was helpful. We'll follow up with some stats on some key takeouts from this one afterwards, and share the slides with you in the recording potentially as well. But yeah, feel free to enter the survey for that prize draw, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one for the video concept.